Welcome to For the Purpose Of, the podcast about big trends, big ideas, and exciting news in the world of EdTech. I am Sarah Wood, and I'm joined by
Keith Tramper
and Ron Houtman.
Today we're going to be talking about computer science on the heels of CSEd week, and we have our very special guest from Michigan Department of Education, Cheryl Wilson.
So in today's episode, we're going to top it off with something completely non-controversial. We're going to be talking about Twitter for just a minute. I mean, totally non-controversial. So the intro question that we're going to talk about a little bit is, what do we think, and maybe what do all you think about what's going on with Twitter, with Elon Musk buying this and using it in ways that might cause some people to flee with their hair on fire? So that's one of those big giant questions we're going to talk about. So there's been, everybody's kind of freaking out about this a little bit. My favorite ones are the people that are on Twitter that say, I always love this, is like the dramatic exit. They have to tell you that they're leave Twitter. So they post on Twitter that they're leaving Twitter. It's like, can't you just go away maybe and just do your thing? But my wondering always is about, why everybody's freaking out so much about Twitter. If you look at statistics of like the largest social networks on the planet, the Earth, where we live, it's depending on what one you look at, but it's like the number 15th or 16th largest social network in the world. Number one is probably, we all know, Facebook. And then it kind of goes down from there. But I just keep wondering, it's like, why is Twitter being sold, taken over, and changed such a huge deal to people? What do you guys think?
I have been waiting for Ron's rants to make a comeback, and here it is. I also kind of wonder about the what's the big deal? But I also kind of feel that like with any social media tool, like how it was built, how it was designed had a specific intention behind it, but really how it's used by its users is what makes the network what it is. So people can, from the higher up say all the things and put all the resources out there for Twitter or whatever it might be. But either people will leave, they'll continue to use it, they'll ignore whatever it might be, they'll make Twitter whatever they want it to be. That's kind of my thought. Time will tell.
Yeah. I've always said that Twitter was full of like 5 groups of people. There's the teachers, there's trolls, there are politicians and news media and Justin Bieber fans. So that's kind of what you're dealing with, and we'll see who wins out in the end. But I think the one thing that I keep seeing surface is that Twitter was kind of one of the few spaces where voices that don't typically get a microphone to talk or to show like injustices around the world, it was one of those places where they could go and do that and be heard.
Mm-hmm. And in real time. I mean, that's the bonus part, right? It's as things are happening, where do people go, to find news as it's happening? And typically is Twitter right now. You don't go to Facebook because by the time you get there and you get through, somebody wants to share a game with you and a bunch of other stuff you're not interested in. It's very hard to find, active, straight away, newsworthy things. You have to dive through all the other junk, but that's not the purpose of Facebook, right?
Yeah. So I feel like it's played a really important role in the social justice side of things. But as you said, like there's also that element of misinformation and disinformation and how that spreads so wildly, especially on Twitter.
So that always leads me to a question when you say that disinformation and misinformation. When I hear that, my first thing is maybe I'm giving humanity too much credit where I think people are smarter than that, but that's obviously not the truth, right? That where people, when they read things on Twitter or on the internet for that matter, they think it's the gospel straight away. It's got to be true because it was on the internet. My wondering is, how on earth can we get the populace, the citizenry, to stop being so absolutely reactive to everything and to actually stop without resharing stuff that's, true, not true, whatever it is, but just pause for just a minute. With my students, I always tell them is like, not everybody needs to know your every thought every second of the day. That's another part of this is how do you maintain a little bit of self-control with, and what's driving that too, right? When you think about the way students use a lot of social media, they are completely driven by approval of their peers with likes and hearts and stars and replies and all that stuff. So that's one of those things I think drives us a lot too, is that you're getting that instant reaction and perhaps gratification from it versus some amount of delay. So do we need to be better at helping our kids understand how to, moderate their speech in ways that are more productive, or just wait 5-10 seconds and you don't need to share everything about your life all the time?
So what I hear you saying is you want that 1/5 that are believers to start being rational, informed social advocates.
I don't know. I think just the pause I think is the best thing, right? Yeah. When we've talked for years and years now in the education technology and beyond communities about the words digital citizenship, right? At some point, I've said this to each of you probably at one time, just in the real world of, isn't digital citizenship just like be nice to people? Be kind. I think that's what we're missing. And I think the other thing that we're really missing, and maybe Twitter is part of this, so is all the other social networks, is that people tend to really overreact, and they don't have any, and this is obviously a huge generalization here, but I guess is what I see a lot of times, is that people really are not able to have nuanced conversations about things anymore. It's all about the gotcha. Now go back to, there's so many cases now, not just on Twitter, but other places too, where a young person, 13 and up, because, nobody under 13 is supposed to be using social networks by the law, might say something and they're completely ignorant and they're uninformed and they've not learned enough yet. And somebody will go dig up one of these tweets or something from them from, let's say, 10 and 15 years ago at this point. And then this person is just going to get completely dogpiled for something that they said when they were dumb and young, right? But we have no apparent ability anymore to look at a situation like that and to say, you know what, they were little, they were uninformed, they did not have life experiences yet to inform that speech that they said, and they may have had life-altering circumstances between now and then, but we're going to hold them accountable to this thing from way back when. And that, to me, I think that's really sad. I hope someday, maybe cooler heads will prevail about this, but again, when you think about Twitter, the big thing is the reason why people probably won't leave it to go to like Mastodon is one of these other examples, right? Another extinct animal, is because of the network effect, right? If you think of the reason why Facebook is so big, is because everybody's there. Same thing with Twitter. And a lot of the other social networks like the TikToks and the Snaps and wherever else, it's those network effects that makes it very, very difficult to move from one place to another, because you always want to be with your tribe. So I don't think Twitter is really going to go anywhere. It's obviously going to lose users, but I don't think it's going to disappear because it serves a pretty interesting purpose. And to be honest with you, if you spend any time at all in your Twitter control panel with your preferences, you can do some pretty good jobs of tuning it in a way that you're not going to see a lot of the crap, because my Twitter feed looks pretty good. I have another one that I don't tell anybody. My Finstagram my Finsta Twitter, Fin Twitter, fake Twitter. I've got another one that I have 0 followers in, and I don't follow anybody, but I use it for research more than anything else. And that one is a cesspool, right? Compared to the one that I've fine-tuned with words that I don't want to see or people I don't want to ever see again. So I think that's part of it too, is, having people understand how to fine-tune the controls that you're given and build the Twitter that you want it to be.
We'll be right back after this short message.
We know you're busy. We also know that you like our podcast. So we created Podcast PDX for you. Register now for free to start earning sketches for listening to a podcast you already love. We'll send you a reflection question whenever we publish a new episode. All you have to do is reflect and respond to earn sketches. Engage when you want, take a break when you need to, and save yourself some time. Register now at bit.ly/FTPOPDX. That's bit.ly/FTPOPDX. This episode's reflection question is, why is computer science important to you, and how have you engaged with computer science in your learning community? We look forward to seeing you in the For the Purpose of PDX community. All right, welcome back. We are going to head into our interview section here with our friend Cheryl Wilson. She is a computer science consultant with the Michigan Department of Education, and Cheryl's been involved in a lot of our EdTech communities for as long as I've been in the EdTech community. How long has it been up at MDE for you?
Well, pretty close. It'll be 3 years, which is hard to believe. It's been amazing, and it's gone by so fast.
Especially given the 3 years we've had.
Yeah, I think we all know we're hyper, what do we call them in space? Hyper light years. There we go.
Awesome. Well, would you take a minute and introduce yourself, kind of give us your computer science origin story, if you will, and tell us what you do and why you do it.
Well, thank you for having me. This is such a pleasure and an honor. I, just so people know, grew up in the West Michigan area, so have my roots in West Michigan. And my story kind of goes back. My dad, when we grew up in the 80s, had a computer in the house. And I think that was kind of unusual for a lot of families. He used it in his work. And so he taught a little bit of basic to me, and it kind of intrigued me, but that's all it was. I got to be in my high school, again, late 80s, and there was a computer science class for seniors, and it was basic. But I loved it. I mean, I thought it was cool. You could write your own code and do some things. Didn't really think much about it till I got to college. And I was going to be a teacher. I knew that. And I love math. And so I was going to pair it with science because, you should always pair those. Those are good pairings. And I was like, I don't want to sit in the lab all day. So I thought, computer science, that sounds interesting. Didn't realize how much time I would spend in a lab actually coding. So learned to code in Fortran and Pascal, which are basically obsolete languages now, but kind of tucked computer science away. Spent 13 years as a math teacher, and as well as some computer technology. So I started to resurrect it then when I was in the classroom, and it was K-8 computers, they called it. And that was when this thing called Scratch from MIT came around, and it was like, wow, this is kind of cool. And there was really no lessons available. You had to do your own thing. And then they also had this thing called Alice from MIT. And it was cool and it was fun. And the kids loved it. It was super engaging. I fell in love with it. And it was one of my favorite ways to teach, is to kind of let the kids do the work and let them empower them. And so as I moved on in roles, I became a tech coach for a district in Wayland, my last district, and basically was able to share a lot of that with the teachers as well as technology. But these are some things you can do. I was big on integration of technology in those tools. Starting with MDE, my job is to kind of get districts to implement computer science. And so with all my experiences, sharing with them ideas, and some suggestions, I really feel like I found a good spot for me right now, where working with a lot of people throughout the state and finding different examples of how we can share it out. Like, how can a district really put computer science into play?
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like in your role, you get to see all around the state how people are attempting to get into CS and how they're actually rolling it out with students, which is just a really unique perspective that I don't know that there's many people that really get to see that.
Yeah, I feel fortunate in that. And that's one of the things I've so enjoyed. I mean, when the pandemic started, we were all boxed in our little windows here on the computer. And now to actually go out and see districts, I did a visit out in West Ottawa recently, and oh my goodness, there were little kindergartners sitting on the floor with Ozobots, listening to directions, and they heard the story of the gingerbread man, and they actually did their own sequence of what he got to see. And then the Ozobot got to do that. And then they got to create their own path for the Ozobot. And I'm like, these are kindergartners. So how much better can it get when we're seeing them just starting from that age and so intrigued by it? And then to continue to work with districts on how can we need to still do that in the middle school level. We're not going to just sit and listen to the gingerbread man. What's the next step? How do we bring that in and actually probably do a little more coding? And to the high school level where they're actually doing some work, creating some true apps and stuff like that. So it is fun, and it's so exciting to see it going around the state and in little districts and large.
Yeah. And I know you've done some pretty intentional works with some of our local districts here in Kent County too. And we only ever hear good things about it. So, we appreciate you working with our schools here too. So, why do you think it's important that all students have an opportunity to learn computer science?
When I think about that, I mean, basically, we look at our everyday lives, and technology is in our everyday lives, and computer science holds a part of that. And just as like we all know how to read, we all know how to do some math, as technology continues to embed itself in our lives, we need to be aware. I'm not saying you're going to be the person out there programming, but you need to understand how this device functions, and it's going to work with a code, and it's going to do this, or you need to know about the cybersecurity involved with using this device. There's so many different aspects that we need to know, at least to be aware of. And that's why I think starting from our younger students all the way up, we need to be aware of it, just like we all had to learn, how to solve for X in our algebra equations, and we all learned to read a chapter in this book and stuff. It's become part of our lives, and that's why I feel it's so important that we make sure that everybody at least has exposure to it and understands it at least a basic level.
Yeah, and you touched on something in there too that I think can't be stated enough, that computer science is not just coding. It includes like those elements of cybersecurity and how networks work and the internet, and even touching across the math and science spectrums as well.
And data analysis is a big one that a lot of people don't realize. There's big connections. And if I bring up the topic of data science, huge connections now with data, and then what you could do with computer science within data, new career fields, all of that. So I do say computer science is truly one of those subjects that will touch all of the other subjects. And I don't think people realize that. And the reason being is computer science by nature, you're applying it to something else. It needs that other application to become real and relevant. And that's where I think people get scared of it because, ooh, I got to know how to code. Well, no, you need to figure out something, first of all, that you want to solve a problem for. And, then you need to work with the coding and everything else. But it's kind of like it needs those other subjects and content areas to give it relevance. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of, words running around a screen, not really doing much. So,
Yeah, that's a really good point. I am interested to hear more, but I'm going to pass it to Ron, who's got the next question here.
Right, Cheryl. So, what are some of the things that you've been seeing around Michigan that schools are doing to provide computer science education to our students?
As I visited, I'm seeing a lot of different ways, and this is again another thing that I think is wonderful about computer science. You can engage in so many different ways. It's not like you have to just do this program and you're going to have computer science. I'm seeing, obviously, in our middle school, high schools, there's a lot of electives. And we know there's the AP courses and stuff like that. But what I'm seeing is districts also approaching it like, we already have a STEM program going in our elementary. We're going to continue to build on that as we go up in middle and high school, and it's going to become more of a STEM sort of class, which broadens it a little bit more. I'm also seeing like not just STEM, but you might want to approach it through computational thinking. That's another approach, which is a little bit more unplugged, and it maybe isn't exactly computer science, but it leads to a lot of those foundational skills that we need in computer science. And then some other things, I've been interested in out of school. I feel like a lot of schools are starting to realize that by summer camps, Some of you may have heard of there's Gen Cyber summer camps, different robotics camps, coding camps, and then clubs. Big on the scene. A lot of districts do robotics, but then I think you're seeing a rise in esports, which also can connect to computer science. So I'm seeing a lot of variety of what computer science that we're seeing throughout the state, and it's exciting to see the different opportunities that the school districts are offering.
Earlier, Cheryl, Keith had asked you a little bit about kind of your origin story, and you shared some great things. And you had mentioned about CS being important across all subjects because it needs that to connect. And really, if you're not going into CS per se, but having a basic understanding of how things work and that. So I'm kind of curious, like, knowing what you've shared here, and I'm in total agreement, you need the CS to connect to other subjects to make it real and make it a living, breathing thing that makes sense to students. But how do we get more educators to actually care more about bringing the computer science to their students in their, if they're a general ed teacher or it's out of their content area?
I think it's kind of like with students. We realize with computer science, if we're engaging with those students only in high school, we're not hitting enough of them. I'm going to say the same thing as with teachers. I'm definitely from a generation that had virtually no exposure to any of these ideas. This is all new. So I'm approaching it kind of with the students. We need to continue to build the pipeline. A lot of it's awareness. And as I talk and work throughout the state, even just bringing up that they could do some unplugged activities. Like with little elementary students, you could actually just sit on the floor, give them cards to maybe put a sequence of steps together. Like, how does this function? And that would actually be like pre-coding. Well, that wouldn't be hard, and you can actually apply it to your subject. And so I think a lot of teachers just need the awareness, which comes through like some professional development. They need the resources too. I know working with REMC, they have the new, the MyTech CS crosswalk. So if any of you haven't seen that yet, check that out. So we need to continue to build that pipeline, and it's not going to be done tomorrow. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I think the more awareness we can bring, and it becoming more common that we talk about it and how we're doing this, it's going to become, again, like, I know I can talk to a student about some reading things just because reading is a common subject that we share. So I think it's becoming more common. In addition, we are trying to work at the collegiate level. Can we get more of our pre-service teachers to engage with computer science? Again, this is a long road to go down, but can we start to even build that capacity way back at that point?
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Cheryl, I was reading an article that just came out from the Kapoor Center, CSTA, and the Alliance for Identity Inclusive Computing Education. And one of the statistics that kind of popped off the page for me was that 1 in 3 CS teachers are the only CS teacher at their school. And it just makes me think about how do we learn and grow when we don't have a community? So I know that you've been doing some things around the state to connect educators, and I wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk about what can those teachers who are in their own silo, the only one in their district doing CS, how do they get connected?
Yeah, you bring up an important point that we all need to be connected. We do better when we work with others. And even if you're the only person in your school or your district, you don't have to be alone. We have started up a Michigan CSPLN. It basically is we're the Michigan CSTA, the Computer Science Teachers Association, MySTEM and the MDE have partnered together to start to try to bring some space. We meet monthly. And so we'll share a link with you on how you can get connected to the Michigan CSPLN. In addition, I just strongly urge people, if you've not ever heard of CSTA, to take a look at it. You can join CSTA for free, which is a national organization. They have a community there that you can join, discussion boards. Like, I don't know how to teach this. You go on there and boom, you've got 10 other teachers that can give you some resources or some ideas. As well as ISD. Again, some of you are familiar with ISD. They have a great community and share a lot of information through that. check with your REMC or MySTEM. You might have something local going on that you did not know about. And if not, maybe poke them and say, can you start something local for us? It's important to find people in your area that maybe you could connect with. And then on a similar note, if you've been trained through something like code.org, commonly they provide some community space. So don't find yourself alone out there. Find some people. And if you don't have people, let me know. I'll find you some people. So
That's awesome. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you for sharing that. And it kind of makes me think you shared some great resources there, but a lot of the teachers I know in our particular area are that either that 1 in 3 or aren't even part of the 1 in 3 where they are a classroom teacher who's taking it on. So if you have a teacher who isn't a computer science teacher and is looking for some activities to get them going, what would you recommend?
I think one of the first things that's kind of nice is maybe to start with some unplugged activities. I don't think people think of that. They think, oh, I need to get them on the computer coding. And actually, a lot of that you can learn in that space. There is an actual unplugged website. But in addition, I know like code.org offers a lot more unplugged activities now. Plenty of places that you can find some unplugged activities just to start to engage your students. It gives you a comfort spot because I'm going to say if you're new to computer science, I'm going to ask you to kind of approach it with a growth mindset and maybe be willing to learn alongside your students. They might know more than you. So, it's okay. And embrace learning from them. I learned that I had to do that in the classroom. Like, oh my goodness, this kid can code so much better than me, but that's great. I'm going to learn from him or her, or, that student. And so to be open about it and to be willing to not be the only one who knows it all. So.
Yeah, that one kid in the class, Ron, that might have like that extreme knowledge around computer science. It's so important to kind of leverage that knowledge that kid has and also allow them to go where they need to go and challenge them to find new spaces.
Are you kind of saying like you don't want bored computer hackers in your classroom? Is that what you're saying?
It feels like a recipe for disaster.
Well, if they are the hacker, because actually we all know that some of these organizations hire the hackers to figure out how to be better. So a lot of times put their strengths to, to your benefit. And again, if they're a student that knows how to code, they might need to work on those social skills, but maybe that's something we can help them with, to work with others and maybe share some of that knowledge and have them help other students troubleshoot. Because again, that's something they can grow maybe with the socialness, but if they have that knowledge, it's great. They can teach me even. So I love it.
Great. Is there anything we didn't get to that you wanted to share?
I guess I would say that I came into my position as a new position, and you have over 800 districts in the state of Michigan to get them to implement computer science, and to realize that in order to do this is going to need to be a culture shift. And I think Sarah kind of mentioned a little bit of that before, that I know a lot of people, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? And it's like, you know what? We're working at this slow and steady, and we're working to get districts interested in implementing at the right time, because we've just been coming through a pandemic. And in case people don't realize, the standards came in 2019. We're only, year 3, 4 after all that. So I want to continue to help Michigan grow slow and steady and at the right pace. Doing things like script workshops. If you've not ever heard about that, that'll be something you want to check out after this. But getting districts to plan and vision for the long term and to be sustainable with computer science, and not just let this be a flash in the pan, because I do feel technology, we all know, is here to stay and probably grow in our lives even more. So we do need to make sure we're addressing it thoughtfully and in the right way for all of our students and our teachers, because this is new for our teachers as well. So I encourage us just to continue to embrace the culture shift. It's okay if we have some growing pains, but as long as we're keeping to move forward, I think, it'll be fun to look years down the road where we're at. Like, that's what people ask me, what do you think in 5-10 years? I'm like, I'm not sure, but I at least want us that much farther. So
Yeah, there's so many possibilities and opportunities, especially when it comes to computer science. So I'm glad we have you at the helm in Michigan to kind of lead that charge. And, we're glad that you could be here today to share with us.
Well, and I thank you for the time. And I've always appreciated work like yours that is helping to support it at a little bit more of a grassroots, more of a regional level. We need the supports there as well as in the districts. So I'm doing my part at the state, but I love the support that I get throughout the state and feel very fortunate. So thank you again for the time and for all that you do here at Kent ISD.
Of course. Thank you. And if people want to get a hold of you, how should they go about that?
Probably, if you want to just send me an email, wilsonc41@michigan.gov. Easiest way to get in touch with me. And then usually I follow up. We can follow up with phone calls if we need that and all that. But yep, love to hear from people and what's going on and what can I do to help them.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Cheryl. And I'm sure we'll have some people reaching out to you soon. But we, again, appreciate you being here and sharing all your knowledge with us.
Thank you.
And that's it for this episode of For the Purpose Of. Thanks for tuning in. Our special thanks to Cheryl Wilson of the Michigan Department of Education and her thoughts on computer science. We always welcome your feedback and appreciate you sharing For the Purpose Of with a friend. Did you hear something that you did with your learners during CS Week? We'd love to hear about it. You can email us at edtech@kentisd.org. You can find all things EdTech at this short link, bit.ly/IamEdTech, bit.ly/IAMEDTECH. Catch you next time on For the Purpose Of. This podcast is a service of Kent ISD. It's produced by Ron Houtman, Sarah Wood, and Keith Tramper. Our theme music is Neon Lights by Scott Holman Music, and our ad music is Vienna Beat by Blue Dot Session.
As soon as you get in the room, you need to hit record, I think, because that's when all the good stuff happens.
We'll be right back after these messages.
All right, Space Buns, cool it.